General Sarah Chen stood at the window of her transport ship, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. The council station was bigger than any human city, a spinning wheel of metal and crystal that housed the most powerful beings in the galaxy. She had been here only twice before, and both times had been difficult. The message had come 3 days ago. Emergency session. Mandatory attendance. Serious charges against humanity. Chen remembered the exact words because she had read them a dozen times, looking for any hint of what was coming. "General, we will dock in 10 minutes, her pilot said from the front of the small ship. Chen nodded but did not turn away from the window. 3 years ago, humans had been alone in the universe. They thought they were the only intelligent life among the stars. Then they had built their first faster-than-light engine, and everything changed. The first alien ship had appeared near Mars within a week of humanity's first FTL test. It was a Vorthak vessel, sleek and black, twice the size of Earth's largest spaceship. The Vorthak had scanned every human ship and station, then transmitted a simple message. "Follow us." That had been Chen's first trip to the council station. She was a colonel then, chosen to represent Earth because she had military experience and could speak clearly under pressure. The other species had treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. The council had 12 member species. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Chen still had trouble looking at them directly. The Thylax were living crystals that spoke through vibrations. The Moloch were gas clouds that formed shapes to communicate. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects with too many eyes. All of them were ancient. The youngest species had been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. The oldest, the Thylax, claimed to have built the first FTL drives 50,000 years ago. To them, humans were babies who had just learned their first word. The docking process was smooth. Chen had made this trip enough times to know the routine. Scan for weapons. Register with station security. Follow the guide to the council chamber. Wait for your turn to speak. But this time felt different. The station seemed more crowded than usual. She saw representatives from species that rarely came to council meetings. The Hegemony Collective had sent 3 ships instead of their usual one. Even the mysterious Voidwalkers were here, their dark shapes moving through the corridors like living shadows. Chen's guide was a young Alterian with blue skin and 4 arms. "General Chen," he said in perfect English, "the council is waiting for you in Emergency Chamber 7. Emergency Chamber 7 was smaller than the main hall, but it felt more intense. The walls were darker and the lighting was harsher. This was where the council met when they needed to make quick decisions about threats to galactic peace. All 12 species were represented. That was unusual. Emergency sessions typically only included the species directly involved in whatever crisis had occurred. Seeing everyone here made Chen's stomach tighten. Speaker Thylax stood at the center of the chamber. The crystal being was over 3 meters tall and glowed with an inner light that pulsed with each word. "General Chen," the vibrations formed words that her translator converted to English. "You stand accused of serious violations of galactic law." Chen took her position at the speaking platform. Around her, representatives from 12 species watched with expressions ranging from anger to disappointment. She had worked for 3 years to build relationships with these beings. She had attended their ceremonies, learned their customs, and tried to prove that humans could be trusted members of the galactic community. "The charges will be presented by council members in order of seniority," Thylax continued. "You will have the opportunity to respond when all accusations have been made." The Moloch delegate spoke first. Their gas form shifted into a pattern that Chen had learned meant serious displeasure. "Humanity has violated Section 12 of the Galactic Settlement Accords by establishing unauthorized colonies in the neutral zone between Moloch and Vorthak territories." The accusation hit Chen like a physical blow. The neutral zone was sacred space, established by treaty thousands of years before humans had even discovered fire. No species was allowed to build anything there. The Zephyrian representative clicked forward on 6 legs. "Humanity has also violated Section 8 by conducting unauthorized mining operations in the Kepler 442 system, which falls under Zephyrian protection as a developing system." Each accusation was worse than the last. The Alterian delegate accused humans of building military installations near 3 different species borders. The Vorthak claimed that human ships had been conducting surveillance operations in their space. The Hegemony Collective presented evidence of human weapons testing in areas forbidden to all species. By the time the formal accusations were finished, Chen felt like she was standing at the bottom of a very deep hole. The evidence was overwhelming. Satellite images, resource extraction data, communication intercepts, and testimony from multiple species all pointed to the same conclusion. Humanity had betrayed the trust of the galactic community. The worst part was that Chen knew the accusations were true. Every single one. These violations represent a pattern of aggressive expansion and disregard for galactic law, Speaker Thylak said. Some council members believe that humanity should be expelled from the galactic community immediately. Others have suggested economic sanctions and military oversight of all human activities. Chen looked around the chamber. 3 years ago, these beings had reluctantly accepted humanity into their community. They had shared their technology, taught humans about galactic law, and opened trade relationships that had benefited both sides. Now they looked at her with disappointment and anger. The Vorthak ambassador leaned forward. General Chen, we trusted your species. We believed that humans understood the importance of the laws that have kept peace in this galaxy for millennia. Instead, you have used our trust to prepare for war. War? Chen asked, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. What else would you call it? The Hegemony Collective representative spoke through their mechanical translator. Military installations, weapons testing, surveillance operations, mining strategic resources. You have been preparing to attack us since the day you joined the council. Chen felt the weight of their stares. 12 species, each with the power to destroy human civilization without effort, all convinced that humanity was planning to betray them. The accusations were serious enough that the council could vote to quarantine Earth, cutting humanity off from the galaxy forever. Worse, they could decide that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Speaker Thylak, Chen said, "May I ask a question before I respond to these charges?" The crystal being pulsed with what Chen had learned was approval. "You may ask. How long have each of your species known the exact location of Earth?" The question seemed to confuse several of the delegates. The Moloch shifted into a pattern that indicated uncertainty. "What relevance does this have to the charges against you?" "Please," Chen said. "How long?" Speaker Thylak consulted with the other delegates before answering. Most council species became aware of Earth's location within days of your first FTL test. Standard procedure requires us to investigate any new FTL-capable species. Chen nodded. "And what is the standard investigation procedure?" "Comprehensive system surveys, resource assessment, technological evaluation, and defensive capability analysis," the Alterian delegate answered promptly. "Thank you," Chen said. "I'm ready to respond to the charges." The chamber fell silent. Chen took a deep breath and prepared to either save her species or watch everything she had worked for crumble into dust. Speaker Thylak's crystal form pulsed with formal authority. As the detailed presentation began, the Council will now present comprehensive evidence of humanity's violations of galactic law. Each species will provide their findings in chronological order. The chamber's central display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of the local galactic region. Red markers appeared scattered across the space around Earth's solar system, each one representing an alleged human violation. The Moloch delegate moved first, their gas form shifting into complex patterns as they spoke. 18 months ago, humans established a permanent installation in Sector 7 Alpha of the Neutral Zone. This facility houses over 200 humans and maintains active communication arrays pointed directly at both Moloch and Vorthak. Space, the display zoomed in to show detailed images of the human facility. Chen recognized it immediately, though she kept her expression neutral. The images were incredibly detailed, showing not just the main buildings but individual humans walking between structures. The facility's power output suggests weapons capabilities far beyond what would be needed for a simple research station. The Moloch continued. "Our analysis indicates this is a military listening post designed to monitor our communications and ship movements." The Vorthak ambassador spoke next. Their species looked almost human except for their gray skin and completely black eyes. Humans have also built mining operations in 3 systems that border our territory. The official reports filed with the Council claim these are commercial ventures extracting common metals. However, our intelligence shows they are specifically mining rare elements used in weapon construction. New images appeared on the display. Massive human mining platforms surrounded by swarms of smaller ships. The scale of the operations was impressive even by galactic standards. Chen had visited 2 of these sites personally and knew the Vorthak's assessment was partially correct. The humans are not mining iron or copper, the Vorthak continued. They are extracting adamantine, crystallized tachyon particles, and neutronium. These materials have only one practical application: building weapons capable of damaging shields used by Council species. A ripple of concern went through the chamber. Neutronium was particularly troubling. It was one of the few materials that could penetrate the energy shields that protected most galactic ships. The fact that humans were mining it in such quantities suggested they were preparing for war with technologically superior opponents. The Zephyrian representative stepped forward on their 6 insect-like legs. Their multifaceted eyes reflected the chamber's lights as they spoke through clicking sounds. The most concerning violation is the human military buildup along our shared border regions. They have constructed what they call deep space monitoring stations at strategic points throughout the sector. The display shifted to show the locations of the human installations. Even Chen was impressed by how comprehensive the Zephyrian intelligence was. They had identified every single human facility, down to the smallest communications relay. These installations form a perfect defensive network, the Zephyrian continued. Each one is positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire. The humans have essentially built a fortress wall between their space and ours. This is not the behavior of a peaceful species seeking trade relationships. The Alterian delegate activated their own presentation. Their blue skin seemed to glow as they spoke with forearmed gestures. Our long-range sensors have detected human weapons testing in the outer rim sectors. The energy signatures match. Theoretical designs for antimatter torpedoes and plasma cannons specifically designed to counter Council ship. Technologies. Chen felt the mood in the chamber, growing darker with each revelation. The evidence was damning because it was all true. Humans had built those facilities, conducted those mining operations, and tested those weapons. The question was whether the Council would listen to her explanation of why. The Hegemony Collective representative spoke through their mechanical translation device. Perhaps most disturbing is the pattern of human ship movements over the past 6 months. Their vessels have been conducting what they call scientific surveys in areas that correspond exactly to the locations of Council military installations and major shipping routes. The display showed tracking data for dozens of human ships. The movement patterns were clearly not random. Human vessels had systematically visited every major Council facility within 50 light-years of Earth. This intelligence gathering goes far beyond normal diplomatic activity, the collective continued. The humans have mapped our defenses, studied our patrol schedules, and identified the locations of our most sensitive installations. This is preparation for military action. Speaker Thylix took control of the presentation again. The final piece of evidence comes from our joint intelligence analysis. When we combine all human activities over the past 3 years, a clear pattern emerges. The display changed to show a time-lapse animation of human expansion, starting from Earth. Red dots spread outward in a carefully planned pattern. Each new installation was positioned to support the next, creating an interlocking network of facilities that gradually surrounded the Council species territory, closest to human space. This is not random expansion, Thylix said. This is a coordinated military strategy designed to contain and potentially attack Council forces in this region. The humans have used their 3 years in our community to study our weaknesses and prepare for war. The Voidwalker representative spoke for the first time. Their species rarely participated in Council meetings, preferring to observe from the shadows. When they did speak, everyone listened. We have detected human experimentation with technologies beyond their supposed capabilities. They are developing weapons and defenses that should be impossible for a species of their age. This was news to Chen. She knew about most of humanity's projects, but the Voidwalkers had apparently discovered something that even she was not aware of. How is this possible? The Moloch delegate asked. They are reverse engineering captured Council technology, the Voidwalker replied. Human agents have acquired samples of our weapons, shield generators, and FTL drives. They are using this stolen technology to build weapons specifically designed to fight us. The accusation of theft sent angry murmurs through the chamber. Stealing technology was one of the most serious crimes in galactic law. Species that violated intellectual property agreements faced immediate expulsion and possible military action. The Thylix speaker's glow intensified as they presented the final summary. The evidence is overwhelming. Humanity has spent 3 years pretending to be peaceful while secretly preparing for war. They have violated territorial agreements, stolen our technology, and built a military network designed to threaten every species in this sector. The pattern is clear, the Vorthak ambassador added. First, gain our trust. Second, study our weaknesses. Third, build weapons to exploit those weaknesses. Fourth, launch a surprise attack when we least expect it. Chen looked around the chamber at faces filled with anger and betrayal. These beings had welcomed humanity into the galactic community, despite their reservations about such a young species. They had shared knowledge, open trade relationships, and treated humans as equals despite the vast technological gap between them. Now they believed that humanity had repaid their trust with treachery. General Chen, Speaker Thylix said, "The evidence against your species is comprehensive and undeniable. Before we vote on sanctions, you have the right to respond to these charges. What do you say in humanity's defense?" Chen stood slowly, feeling the weight of every accusation. Around her, representatives from 12 ancient and powerful species waited for her response. She knew that whatever she said next would determine whether humanity remained part of the galactic community or faced isolation and possible destruction. The chamber fell completely silent as she prepared to speak. General Chen stood at the speaking platform, her hands clasped behind her back in a position that had become natural during her military career. The silence in Emergency Chamber 7 was complete. 12 species waited for her to either deny the charges or beg for mercy. She did neither. Speaker Thylix. "Honored delegates," Chen began, her voice clear and steady. "I want to thank the Council for this comprehensive presentation. The evidence you have shown is accurate and detailed. I am impressed by the quality of your intelligence gathering." A few delegates exchanged glances. The Moloch's gas form shifted into a pattern that Chen recognized as confusion. This was not the response they had expected. "You are correct about the facilities in the neutral zone," Chen continued. "We have indeed established permanent installations there. The power readings your sensors detected are accurate. These facilities do have capabilities beyond simple research." The Vorthak ambassador leaned forward. "You admit to violating the neutral zone accords?" "I admit that we built facilities there, yes." Speaker Thylix's crystal form pulsed with what might have been surprise. "General Chen, do you understand the seriousness of this admission? Violation of the neutral zone accords is a crime punishable by expulsion from the galactic community." "I understand the law," Chen replied. "I also want to confirm that your intelligence about our mining operations is correct. We have been extracting adamantine, tachyon particles, and neutronium from the systems you identified. The quantities are exactly what your report stated." The chamber erupted in whispers and clicking sounds as delegates communicated with each other in their various languages. The Zephyrian representative's multiple eyes focused on Chen with what appeared to be disbelief. "You are confessing to weapons manufacturing?" the Zephyrian asked. "I am confirming that we have mined materials that can be used for weapons." "Yes." The Alterian delegate gestured with all 4 arms in a pattern that Chen had learned indicated extreme agitation. "General Chen, are you aware that you are essentially pleading guilty to every charge the Council has brought against you?" "I am aware that I am confirming the accuracy of your evidence." Chen activated her own holographic display, showing a simple star chart of the local region. "I would like to ask the Council some questions, if I may." "Questions?" The Hegemony Collective's mechanical translator made the word sound harsh. "You stand accused of preparing for war against the galactic community, and you want to ask questions?" "Yes," Chen said simply. "My first question is about galactic navigation standards. When a new species develops FTL travel, what is the standard protocol for mapping their territory?" Speaker Thylix consulted with several other delegates before answering. "Standard procedure requires a comprehensive survey of all systems within 50 light-years of the new species' homeworld. This survey includes resource assessment, defensive capabilities analysis, and potential threat evaluation." Chen nodded and made a note on her display. "Thank you. My second question concerns trade route establishment. When opening commerce with a new species, what areas typically require the most detailed mapping?" The Moloch delegate shifted into a pattern that indicated reluctant cooperation. "Strategic shipping lanes, resource-rich systems, and potential military staging areas must all be thoroughly documented for security purposes." "And who conducts these surveys?" Chen asked. Each council species conducts independent assessments to ensure accuracy, the Vorthak ambassador replied. We cannot rely on the new species to provide accurate information about their own capabilities. Chen added more notes to her display. The delegates were becoming visibly impatient with what seemed like a basic civics lesson. Several were making gestures that indicated they wanted to move on to the formal voting process. My third question involves council ship movements, Chen continued. During the assessment period for a new species, how many survey missions would you estimate are conducted? That depends on the complexity of the species' territory and technology level, the Alterian delegate answered. For a species like humanity, with multiple inhabited systems and developing military capabilities, perhaps 50 to 100 individual survey missions over a 3-year period. And these missions would involve how many ships? Each mission typically requires 3 to 5 vessels for comprehensive data collection, Speaker Thylix replied. Why are these questions relevant to your defense? Chen smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Because I want to make sure I understand the scope of the surveys that have been conducted in human space over the past 3 years. She began entering data into her display. 50 to 100 missions with 3 to 5 ships each, conducted by 12 different species. That would mean somewhere between 1,800 and 6,000 individual alien vessels have visited human territory since we joined the galactic community. That sounds approximately correct, the Zephyrian representative confirmed. What is your point? My point is that humans are very good at math, Chen replied. We are also very good at pattern recognition. When 6,000 alien ships visit your territory in 3 years, you start to notice certain things. Chen's display began showing new data. For instance, you notice that survey missions always include at least one ship equipped with military-grade sensors. You notice that these missions spend a lot of time studying your defensive installations, rather than your trade capabilities. You notice that the surveys follow patterns that correspond exactly to attack approach routes used in historical galactic conflicts. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. Several delegates were beginning to look uncomfortable. You also notice, Chen continued, that every single council species has conducted what they call routine surveys of the exact same strategic locations around your homeworld. Locations that would be critical for establishing blockades or staging invasion forces. The Voidwalker representative spoke for the second time in the meeting. You are suggesting that council survey missions were actually reconnaissance for military action? I am not suggesting anything, Chen replied. I am simply noting that human analysts found it interesting that 12 different species all independently decided to conduct detailed surveys of the same, strategically important locations around Earth. Chen added more data to her display. We also found it interesting that several species have been conducting surveys of human space far more frequently than galactic law requires. The standard assessment period for new species is 1 year. We have been members of the galactic community for 3 years. Yet the surveys have never stopped, ongoing. Assessment is normal for species that show unusual technological development. The Hegemony Collective representative protested. That brings me to my fourth question, Chen said. What constitutes unusual technological development for a species that has been FTL capable for only 3 years? She did not wait for an answer. Because according to our analysis, human technological development has been completely normal for a species of our age. We have made no breakthrough discoveries. We have developed no revolutionary new weapons. We have not even improved significantly on the basic FTL drive design that brought us to your attention. Chen paused and looked around the chamber. So I find myself wondering why 12 ancient and powerful species have spent 3 years conducting the most intensive intelligence gathering operation in modern galactic history against a species that poses no possible threat to any of them. The delegates were no longer whispering among themselves. Chen had their complete attention. Unless, she continued, the purpose of those surveys was not to assess humanity's threat level, but to plan something else entirely. General Chen's holographic display shifted, showing a new set of data that made several delegates lean forward in their seats. The star chart now displayed not just human activities, but detailed tracking information for council ship movements over the past 3 years. Since we are all being so honest about intelligence gathering, Chen said, her voice taking on a harder edge, I think it is time for humanity to share what we have learned during our membership in the galactic community. Speaker Thylex's crystal form pulsed with what Chen had learned was alarm. General Chen, what exactly are you showing us? Complete tracking data for every council vessel that has entered human space since first contact, Chen replied. We have been very thorough in our record keeping. The display began showing movement patterns for individual ships. Each council species was represented by a different color, creating a complex web of lines that crisscrossed human territory. The patterns were far more extensive than any legitimate survey operation would require. The Moloch conducted 47 separate reconnaissance missions to the Jupiter system, Chen continued, highlighting specific routes. That seems excessive for assessing a gas giant with no strategic value. Unless you were interested in the asteroid mining facilities we were building there. The Moloch delegates' gas form shifted into defensive patterns. Those were routine scientific surveys. Were they? Chen asked. Because your ship spent most of their time scanning the mining platforms rather than Jupiter itself. They also conducted detailed analysis of the orbital mechanics around the planet, which would be necessary information for someone planning to attack those facilities. Chen highlighted another set of routes. The Vorthak made 32 visits to the Alpha Centauri system. Your ships focused specifically on the military training facilities we were constructing there. They even conducted sensor sweeps to determine the exact number of human ships based at the station. The Vorthak ambassador's black eyes reflected the chamber's lights as they spoke. We were monitoring potential treaty violations. What treaty violations? Chen asked. Alpha Centauri is well within human-controlled space. We were not required to inform the Council about military facilities in our own territory, unless you were planning to visit those facilities uninvited. The chamber's atmosphere was growing tenser with each revelation. Chen continued methodically through her data, showing how each council species had conducted far more intelligence gathering than any peaceful purpose would require. The Zephyrians made 61 separate visits to map the asteroid belts around Sol, she said. Your ships paid particular attention to the mining installations and defense platforms we were building there. You even conducted stealth reconnaissance missions using ships designed to avoid detection. We detected those ships, Chen added, causing the Zephyrian representative to freeze. Human sensor technology may be primitive by your standards, but we are very good at noticing when someone is trying to hide from us. Chen's display shifted to show a timeline of all council activities in human space. When viewed together, the pattern was unmistakable. Each species had been systematically mapping human defenses, studying resource extraction operations, and identifying strategic weaknesses. The Alterians conducted covert surveys of every inhabited human world, Chen continued. Your ships used stealth technology to approach our planets and conduct detailed scans of population centers, industrial facilities, and defensive installations. You mapped our cities, counted our ships, and analyzed our military capabilities. The Alterian delegates' forearms moved in agitated gestures. These surveys were conducted within the bounds of galactic law, were they? Chen asked. Because several of your ships violated human territorial space to conduct close-range scans of classified military installations. That is an act of espionage, not legitimate surveying. The evidence was becoming overwhelming. Chen showed how the Hegemony Collective had infiltrated human communication networks, how the Voidwalkers had conducted deep space surveillance operations, and how even the peaceful Thylex had used their ancient technology to scan human ships and stations without permission. When we combine all council activities in human space over the past 3 years, Chen said, bringing up a comprehensive analysis, we see something very interesting. Every single council species has independently gathered the exact information they would need to plan and execute a coordinated attack on human civilization. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Chen let the implications sink in before continuing. You have mapped our defenses, identified our resource stockpiles, analyzed our ship capabilities, and studied our population centers. You have conducted detailed reconnaissance of every strategic location in human space. You have even identified the specific weapons and tactics that would be most effective against human forces. Speaker Thylex's glow had dimmed significantly. General Chen, you are suggesting that the entire council has been planning to attack humanity? I am not suggesting anything, Chen replied. I am showing you the data. 12 different species acting independently have all gathered the exact same intelligence that would be needed for a military conquest of human space. Either this is the most remarkable coincidence in galactic history, or it was coordinated. Chen activated a new section of her display, but the most interesting discovery came 18 months ago, when we detected communication signals between Council ships operating in human space. They were not just conducting independent surveys. They were sharing information and coordinating their intelligence-gathering operations. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several delegates began speaking at once in their various languages, creating a chaos of sounds and gestures. Speaker Thylix called for order, but it took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. "You have been spying on Council communications," the Hegemony Collective demanded. "We have been monitoring all communications in human space as is our right under galactic law," Chen replied. "What we found was evidence of a conspiracy among Council species to gather intelligence for what could
only be a planned invasion of human territory." Chen showed communication
intercepts that had been translated into multiple languages. The messages were brief and coded, but their meaning was clear. Council species had been sharing detailed information about human defenses and coordinating their reconnaissance efforts. "This brings us to the real question," Chen said, her voice growing harder. "You accuse humanity of preparing for war, but all of our preparations have been in response to clear evidence that 12 galactic powers were planning to attack us. Every facility we built, every weapon we developed, every defensive position we established was designed to protect human civilization from the invasion you have been planning." The chamber erupted again as delegates realized the full implications of Chen's revelations. The humans had not been preparing for an aggressive war of conquest. They had been preparing to defend themselves against a coordinated Council attack. "You want to know why we mined neutronium?" Chen asked over the noise. "Because our intelligence analysis indicated that Council ships use energy shields that can only be penetrated by neutronium-based weapons. You want to know why we built facilities in the neutral zone? Because those facilities provide early warning of Council fleet movements toward human space." Chen's display showed the final piece of evidence, a comprehensive analysis of Council military capabilities and the human defensive measures designed to counter them. Every human action that the Council had called aggressive was actually a carefully planned defensive response to specific Council threats. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings," Chen said, her voice cutting through the chaos, "humanity has spent 3 years preparing for the war that you have been planning to bring to us. The only question now is whether you are still planning to start that war, or whether you are ready to discuss why you thought attacking the newest members of your community was a good idea." The chaos in Emergency Chamber 7 continued for several minutes as delegates argued among themselves in a dozen different languages. General Chen stood quietly at the speaking platform, waiting for the storm to pass. She had one more revelation to share, and it would change everything. Speaker Thylix finally restored order by increasing their crystal form's brightness until it became impossible to ignore. "General Chen," they said, their vibrations sharp with tension, "these accusations are extremely serious. You are claiming that the entire Council has been planning to attack humanity." "Not planning," Chen replied. "Already attempted." The chamber fell silent so quickly that the sudden absence of sound seemed to echo off the walls. Every delegate focused on Chen with expressions of shock and disbelief. 3 days ago," Chen continued, her voice steady and cold, "a combined fleet of 6 Council species crossed into the Sol system. The fleet consisted of 47 ships, 12 Moloch vessels, 8 Vorthak cruisers, 10 Zephyrian attack craft, 7 Alterian destroyers, 6 Hegemony Collective dreadnoughts, and 4 Voidwalker stealth ships." The silence in the chamber was complete. Chen could see the exact moment when each delegate realized what she was saying. "The fleet entered human space at 14:30 Galactic Standard Time on October 4th, Chen continued. "They approached Earth along the attack route that had been mapped during your reconnaissance missions over the past 3 years. They were not conducting surveys. They were not responding to a distress call. They came to Sol system armed for war and moving in battle formation." Speaker Thylix's crystal form had dimmed to barely visible levels. "General Chen, what you are describing would be an act of war against humanity." "Yes," Chen agreed. "It would be." The Moloch delegate's gas form was shifting rapidly between patterns of denial and confusion. "This is impossible. The Council has not authorized any military action against humanity. Then perhaps you should ask your military commanders why they sent ships to attack Earth without Council authorization, Chen replied. Or perhaps you should ask why they thought they could attack a Council member species and keep it secret. Chen activated a new section of her holographic display. This is censored data from our defense platforms in the Sol system, recorded 3 days ago. The display showed space around Earth, with dozens of contact markers moving inward from the system's edge. The alien ships moved in precise formation, clearly following a pre-planned attack strategy. They had spread out to approach Earth from multiple directions, making it impossible for a single defensive force to stop them all. Your fleet was confident, Chen observed. They expected to find Earth defenseless. After all, humanity's military representative was here at the Council station, and most of our ships were conducting training exercises in distant systems. It must have seemed like perfect timing. The Vorthak ambassador was staring at the display with their completely black eyes. Where did this sensor data come from? From the defense network that you accused us of building illegally, Chen replied. The mining operations in asteroid belts around Sol were not just extracting neutronium. They were also installing sensor platforms and automated weapon systems. The facilities in the neutral zone were not just listening posts. They were command centers coordinating a defensive network that covered every approach to human space. Chen's display showed the scope of humanity's defensive preparations, hidden weapon platforms in asteroid fields, disguised sensor arrays throughout the system, automated defense systems that had been built to look like civilian installations. When your fleet entered the Sol system, they triggered the most comprehensive defensive network in human history, Chen continued, a network that had been 3 years in the building, designed specifically to counter the exact type of attack you launched. The display began showing the battle. Automated defense platforms that had been hidden in asteroids suddenly activated, revealing themselves to be heavily armed weapon systems. Mining ships that looked harmless transformed into military vessels. Even civilian cargo haulers turned out to be disguised warships. Your fleet lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes, Chen said. They managed to destroy 6 human defense platforms and damage 2 civilian stations before the automated systems eliminated them completely. The room was so quiet that Chen could hear the ventilation systems cycling air through the chamber. The delegates were staring at the battle footage with expressions of horror and disbelief. 47 ships, Chen repeated. Crews totaling approximately 8,000 beings from 6 different Council species, all killed while attempting to destroy human civilization. The Zephyrian representative's multiple eyes were focused on Chen with what appeared to be terror. You are saying that Council forces attacked Earth and were completely destroyed? I am saying that forces from Council species attempted to attack Earth and failed, Chen corrected. Whether those forces were acting on Council orders is something you will need to determine among yourselves. Chen's display shifted to show the aftermath of the battle. Debris fields where the alien ships had been destroyed, human rescue vessels searching for survivors but finding none, the automated defense system standing down after confirming that all hostile forces had been eliminated. The attack was sophisticated, Chen admitted. Your commanders had done their homework. They knew the locations of our defense installations, the patrol schedules of our ships, and the gaps in our sensor coverage. They almost succeeded in reaching Earth before our hidden defenses activated. She paused and looked around the chamber. Almost. The Hegemony Collective representative spoke through their mechanical translator, the words sounding hollow in the stunned silence. How is this possible? Council ship technology is centuries ahead of anything humanity possesses. Technology is not everything, Chen replied. You had better ships, better weapons, and better shields. But we had 3 years to prepare for exactly this attack. We knew it was coming. We knew how you would approach. We knew what weapons you would use and what tactics you would employ. When you have that much advance warning, even primitive technology can be effective. Chen activated the final section of her presentation. This is why humanity built facilities in the neutral zone. This is why we mined neutronium and developed weapons capable of penetrating Council shields. This is why we conducted surveillance of Council ship movements and studied your military capabilities. Every single action that you accused us of taking was a defensive measure against the attack that occurred. 3 days ago, the display showed a comprehensive, timeline linking Council reconnaissance, activities to human defensive preparations, Every alien survey mission had been followed by corresponding human countermeasures. Every piece of intelligence gathered by Council forces had prompted humanity to develop specific defenses against the threats they had identified. You spent 3 years planning to invade human space, Chen said. We spent 3 years preparing to stop you. Speaker Thylix found their voice first. General Chen, if what you are saying is true, then Council forces have committed an unprovoked act of war against a member species. Yes, Chen agreed. They have, but you said the attacking forces were destroyed. How do we verify this information? Chen smiled grimly. I am glad you asked. We have been broadcasting the sensor data from the battle on all Council communication frequencies for the past 72 hours. We have also transmitted detailed recordings to the home systems of all species involved in the attack. Your governments should have received confirmation that their ships and crews were lost attempting to attack Earth. The chamber erupted as delegates began frantically checking their communication devices. Within minutes, it became clear that Chen was telling the truth. Several species had indeed lost contact with military vessels 3 days ago. The ships had been reported as missing during routine patrol operations. You attacked our home, Chen said, her words cutting through the chaos. You sent a fleet to destroy human civilization, while our representative was here pretending to discuss peaceful cooperation. You planned this attack for 3 years, gathering intelligence and coordinating your forces while pretending to welcome us into the galactic community. She stood straighter, her military bearing evident as she delivered her final statement. The attack failed. Your ships are destroyed. Your crews are dead. The only question now is whether the Council as a whole was responsible for this act of war, or whether 6 member species decided to commit genocide on their own initiative. Chen deactivated her holographic display and looked around the chamber one final time. Either way, humanity is no longer interested in pretending that we trust you. We know what you are capable of. We know what you plan to do to us, and we know that we can stop you if you try again. She paused at the chamber entrance and turned back to face the stunned delegates. The Council has a choice to make. You can acknowledge what happened and work toward actual peaceful coexistence, or you can continue planning attacks against human space. But if you choose the second option, remember that we will be ready for you. We have been ready for 3 years. General Chen walked out of Emergency Chamber 7, leaving behind 12 species that had to confront the reality that their newest member had just proven to be far more dangerous than